Picture yourself at 60 years old with $2.1 million. You're probably starting to ask yourself if you can retire, and if so, how much can you expect to spend? That's the situation that Peter and Amanda find themselves in. They've been so focused on saving for the future, raising kids, and working hard in their careers that they're just starting to think about the reality of the next phase of life in retirement. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through Peter and Amanda's financial plan to see if they're on track to retire, and if so, how much can they expect to spend. And your financial figures will undoubtedly not be exactly the same as theirs. Your numbers may even be much different, but the framework I'm going to show you will work for many different financial situations. Although Peter and Amanda's situation is a real client case, and they asked for our help to guide them to and through retirement after watching this channel, I've changed their names for confidentiality and rounded up the numbers for simplicity. Hey there, it's Anthony, CEO and certified financial planner here at One Degree Advisors, and I'm here to help you gain confidence in your retirement. So let's meet Peter and Amanda. Peter is 61 years old. Amanda's just about to turn 60. They've been good savers, and retirement has become a little more real to them. They want to know when they can retire, and when that happens, how much can they expect to spend? So we organize their financials, including their assets, their income, their expenses, and which I will share with you. Also, we spend time talking about what's most important to them. What are their most pressing questions and what they really value in life? So let me share both their financials and their priorities in life. Okay, so let's go over to their balance sheet. And what we can see here is with their investment statements and also with their real estate. They have a trust brokerage account, $174,000. That's a non-retirement account. Amanda has both a 401k and an IRA. Peter has the same, a 401k and an IRA as well. And Amanda also has a tax-free Roth IRA, which is really nice to have. Their home is worth $1.2 million, and they have a small mortgage, $158,000 with a low fixed rate and about 5 years left on the scheduled payment. In terms of what's most important to them, they would like to retire at 65 for Peter, Amanda at 64 so they can retire in the same year. They'd like to maintain their standard of living in retirement. They would love to travel, especially early in retirement. And they'd love to continue to give to their church and other charities regularly. They would also love to give a large one-time gift in the coming years to help disadvantaged youth, which is a cause they're really passionate about. And lastly, they like spending so much time with their children and grandchildren. It's just really important to them. Okay, so in the plan, let's go over to their income. They have these working salaries, and we're also estimating their future Social Security benefits within the plan. Their full retirement ages fall at age 67. And after some analysis, we're tentatively planning to defer Peter's benefit until age 70, because every age he defers, then it will increase 8% per year, and he gets that higher benefit for the rest of his life. We could do this with Amanda's benefit as well, and if they both live long lives, it certainly could make sense to wait and take that higher benefit. But after we discussed, they're aiming to take Amanda's at her full retirement age, and then on maxing out Peter's benefit, because at least then if one of them passes away early, the survivor would still get the higher of the two benefits, which in this case would be Peter's. And if you do want to go deeper into the strategy behind the timing of Social Security, we posted an entire video on that topic. I'll post a link in that description for you. Okay, so let's go over to the savings tab over here. And what we're going to see is that Peter and Amanda, they're still saving into their 401ks while they're working. In fact, they are able each to max out the contribution, which is $30,500 in 2024. They're also receiving a match from their employers. Amanda receives up to 3% of her pay, and Peter receives 4% of his pay from his employer. Now, their companies have also made discretionary profit-sharing contributions to their accounts in the past, but we left those out of the planning because they're at the company's discretion. If they do indeed receive those profit-sharing contributions, those will only help their financial situation. When it comes to estimating expenses, this is really important to get correct. And when I say correct, you'll never be exact with your expenses, especially going far out into the future. But it's important you're being realistic about what you spend, especially with what you need to meet your basic expenses throughout retirement. You really don't want to underestimate and have this false sense of security as you're planning. We talk a lot about how to get this right here on Retire Confidently. And yes, you can simply add up your expenses and decide how much you need to live on. And I do encourage you to do that. It's a worthwhile exercise. However, I find that most people underestimate. So what I'm going to show you is how we more accurately estimate our clients' living expense needs by using their actual financial numbers. Okay, so what you're going to see over here is a retirement cash flow worksheet. We call it Live, Give, Owe, Grow. And the purpose of this is to back into their basic living expenses. So this would be, when we say current living expenses over here, this would be everything like groceries, gasoline, keeping the lights on, all the stuff that's kind of hard to add up. And the way we're going to do this is first we're going to add up all their current income. So in this case for them, it's just their salaries. If you have rental income, for instance, or some other source of income, you'd want to include that. We're trying to look at top line income. And then we're going to start subtracting out what I like to call the itemized expenses. These are those larger expenses that tend to play into your overall cash flow. We're going to start first with taxes. So this is everything from income taxes, and then we also have property taxes included in here. And that's a total of $68,000. Now, there's also payroll taxes, which once you get into retirement, you don't have to pay. This is when you're paying into Social Security and Medicare. Peter and Amanda's case, like we talked about, they're saving into their 401ks. They don't have anything in the miscellaneous bucket. And then when we go down to debt, they're paying that fixed rate mortgage of $33,000 every year. And they're also giving charitably about $25,000 per year, okay? So we go back up to the top here and you'll see those same numbers up in the summary up here. We got total income, subtract out these other large expenses, and then we back into their current living expenses. We take note of that, and then we're going to apply that into the financial plan. Okay, so let's put those expenses back into the financial plan. And you can see here we rounded up to an even $7,000 per month for those basic living expenses, or $84,000 a year. But remember, this is not the total. You'll see that we're still accounting for those other larger itemized expenses. And the reasons for separating these can vary, but generally they're either expenses that drop off, like their mortgage, or have a tax benefit like charitable giving. Okay, so we have their mortgage over here is $33,000, and this is scheduled to be paid off in 5 years. They have a very low fixed rate, so they're really not in a hurry to pay it off any faster. We have their charitable giving of $25,000 per year, and their top line income will come down in retirement, so they're considering potentially reducing their charitable giving, especially if they needed to when they get into retirement. But for now, we're going to keep that as because they would really like to maintain the same amount of giving if they can. And then here's something that people often miss with healthcare, especially if you retire prior to Medicare age. Health insurance can be very expensive, and Medicare doesn't kick in until age 65. So based on their target retirement ages of 65 and 64, Peter's retirement would line up with Medicare just fine, but Amanda would have a year of private health insurance need that she'd have to pay off, and we're estimating about $1,000 a month that she would need to pay. We included a line item here for Peter. If we go through the plan and decide that they want to retire earlier, if they can, then we can always add that in for Peter as well. And then we have income taxes here at the bottom. And because income can shift and tax rates will also change along with those income levels, we set up the rules within the program, and we're allowing the software to calculate taxes going forward on a year-by-year basis. I like to tell people this is like the broad estimate of taxes. When it comes to real life, though, what we're actually going to do is proactively tax plan to try and bring the actual tax payments down and save taxes throughout retirement, which would then keep more money in their pocket to spend, give away, or travel. We've also included property taxes. Those are factored into the plan, and I've inputted those along with the home asset. So those are the details, and now I want to show you if they're on track. And real quick, if you like seeing these real life scenarios, we love sharing them, but let me know in the comments if you like these kinds of videos, and we can keep making more of them. And I should add, we're also estimating a 6% average return on their investments and 3.7% yearly inflation rate. Even as moderate growth investors, and they may expect to earn more, and we certainly will work to make that happen, but for planning purposes, it can make sense to be somewhat conservative with estimates. The same goes for inflation. I mean, that's been much higher recently, but the long-term average is around 3.3%. Now let's see what this looks like if they're on track to retire at 65 and how much they can expect to spend in retirement. Okay, so we're looking at the projection over here, and let me explain what we're looking at with this graph. Each bar represents a year of their life, starting in the current year that we're in. We also see when they retire at 65, at least that's what we're aiming for in the plan. And then it runs out towards age 95 for each of them. Each bar represents a year of their life, and then the size of the bar really represents their nest egg. Now, the projection for them looks great. It covers their base case and shows to be sound, but like we discussed, they really want retirement to be more than just meeting their basic needs. They have some other goals to maximize their return on life. The goal for Peter and Amanda is not to die with as much money as they can, and this planning process that we use with retirees is designed to give them confidence first, then freedom so they can focus on what's really important to them, and finally impact. For Peter and Amanda, this is their family and the community. So Peter and Amanda highlighted two things that they want to make happen once their basic needs seem to be met. Number one is they want to give $100,000 as a one-time gift. This would be an impactful gift to the teen centers that are very dear to them. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the gift to charity, the 100,000 one-time gift. And what we can see is that this would not have much of a negative effect, and that's a good thing. When the time comes to make the gift, we would actually take it a step further and we'd look to give this strategically, meaning not just writing a check. Our recommendation is to give appreciated shares of some ETF investments that they hold in their taxable brokerage account. This would not only accomplish the gift objective that they have and secure a tax deduction, but it would avoid the massive capital gains on those appreciated shares. I'll drop a link in the description to a video we posted on how to avoid capital gains in retirement. Giving appreciated shares was one of the 3 strategies we discussed in that video. They also wanted to travel in their early years of retirement. There are places in the world they want to visit, but remember, their kids and grandkids are really important to them. They find that vacationing together with their family is a great way to not only enjoy time together, but also to build upon their relationships. So what we'll do is we'll go over here and we'll click on the modifier to add $20,000 per year. Over the years, sometimes this may mean a trip to Europe for the 2 of them or renting a beach house for the family. We can see this still leaves the projection in good shape. It does reduce, but it's still very solid. So that then begs the question, should they consider any other adjustments? But before we look at other adjustments, let me add some further context to the projection. The first is that we see this giant amount of money at the end of life, and this is showing a future inflated value of $2.6 million. But that $2 million in 35 years will not be what it is today. If we switch it over to present value, we can see that it's not quite as much as it was. In fact, in today's dollars, it's about $700,000. Still a good sum of money, no doubt, but we want to be cognizant of that because any unforeseen expenses or circumstances could eat into that cushion. I mean, one such expense could be long-term healthcare needs. It's very hard to predict what actual expenses will be, but we'll go ahead and we'll click on a scenario there. And what we're doing here is we're illustrating what if Peter had a long-term care event of $10,000 per month over 3 years starting at 85. Now, it's entirely unrealistic to think that that would be exactly the situation, but it can help to illustrate the potential outcome. And then that way we can plan around that and still see that the overall cushion does come down and they can factor that into their decisions. Also, these are what we call linear projections. I mentioned that we're estimating a return on investment of 6% per year. And we know that their investments will not return a consistent 6% return every year. I mean, even if the average is close, the reality will be that they may earn 20% one year, negative 15% the next. Ultimately, their returns are going to fluctuate. So one other way we can test the outcomes is to run simulations to the range of returns. It's a stat analysis called Monte Carlo. Again, this is just a tool. Okay, to make this simulation run accurately, I've changed the flat 6% average return to a market-based return estimates, and you can see the outcome, the range of outcomes is quite wide. But there's a probability of success of 96%. And we all tend to be trained from school to shoot for 100%, and while I admire the ambition, that's not really what we want here. Now, of course, if you're Warren Buffett and you have way more than you need, 100% would be the outcome. But in most cases, 100% means you may not be challenging your spending or your giving. It's okay to be less than 100% here. In fact, even 96% is quite high. And just to test it, what we'll do is go ahead and flip on extra spending of $1,500 per month. And we can see here that that still keeps the probability of success at 85%. And that shows us that they could increase their spending as long as we take a watchful, dynamic approach to withdrawals. So now on the flip side, does this mean we have a 15% chance of failure? Technically, yes, but practically no, because like you've always done in life with your money, you can adjust. And this underscores what financial planning is all about. See, I mean, most people and even advisors may have you believe that a plan is something you check off your to-do list, but actually a plan is meant to be dynamic, and it's meant to be monitored and then adjust as your life changes. It's meant to provide flexibility to deal with what may come your way. Going back to the projection, we could look at other potential adjustments. I'm back to the original expense level with the gift and the travel included, but given that that plan looks solid, could they maybe retire a year earlier? So I'll set this to age 64, and it certainly reduces the trajectory here. Ultimately, they decided that they're comfortable working until 65 and didn't need to push to retire earlier by making other adjustments, especially since they had seen what long-term care may do if that situation arose. We can also look at what if their investments perform slightly better or worse. We could see here by changing from a 6% to a 7% rate, then that improves it quite nicely. We also, if we look at say a 4.5%, a much lower rate, we can see that that reduces it much more significantly. From that, we can see that the investment return really does matter. They cannot be overly conservative, but they also don't need to be ultra aggressive either in their investing. A solid moderate growth strategy that includes some growth, but also a war chest of some conservative investments for those inevitable down cycles should suit them just fine. Now that we have this top-down view, we want to dive a little deeper into the details to see how much they can expect to spend. So I'm bringing up this cash flow report, and this is perhaps the most important report in the plan. This page shows the numbers behind the graphs, and it helps me to see if everything's aligned even with all the moving parts. So what I want to show you here is the first year of retirement, and what we can see is that there is no income coming in at this point because their salaries have stopped and Social Security hasn't yet started. So what they should expect to spend is about $225,000, and all of this would be needed to withdraw from the portfolio because they haven't started Social Security yet. And that amount may seem like a high amount to withdraw. So let's dive deeper on the withdrawals, because perhaps you're thinking the 4% withdrawal rule, that's the rule of thumb, but the withdrawal amount will reduce over time, as we'll see here. So even that $225,000 that they're taking, which is almost 8%, it's going to go down over time because remember, their mortgage will be paid off, and then ultimately Social Security will also kick in. Peter and Amanda can't think of these as windfalls because as these start to happen, mortgage drops off, they'll reduce their portfolio withdrawals by a corresponding amount. And we'll also be monitoring the plan. If things are better than expected, and remember, we are tending to be more conservative with our estimates here. We can possibly take a higher income if things are working out fine. And that's the beauty of planning, is it guides you to make good decisions for today. So their plan is on track, but there's key areas of planning going forward for Peter and Amanda. Let me name off 3 really important ones. The first one is tax planning. Like I said, we're using broad tax estimates in the plan, and we want to reduce those numbers with proactive tax planning each year. The second is having an investment plan. All this doesn't mean a whole lot if the investment plan is not sound. Is it addressing growth needs, but also just keeping up with the optimal amount and that stable war chest for when markets are not so good? And thirdly is income optimization. Everything you thought you knew about financial planning when you're working and saving and building your retirement nest egg up, it changes when you get into retirement. So what's the best way to withdraw money? Which account do you start with? How do you save taxes in the process? These become significant questions. Remember, we want to move from confidence, freedom, and impact when you have a plan. My partner Alex shared a whole video on where should I take money from first in retirement. You can watch that here. Thanks so much for watching, and Alex will see you over on that video now.